Well, hello, everybody. Coming at you again with a message and the counting of the Omer. Here once again, Rabbi Randy at my office at CRC. It's been an active, very active Shabbat. We had a couple who met here 23 years ago and were married here at the synagogue 20 years ago. So it's their 20th anniversary, and we gave them at the Shabbat morning service, gave them a beautiful blessing, and they hosted a wonderful lunch. And in addition to that, it was our last day before summer vacation of our Shabbat school, our religious school. And so all the kids came in at the end of the service and they sang us some songs. They were adorable, and we gave them a blessing so that they could have, telling them we're going to miss them, but hoping that they have a safe and a fun and an adventurous and a restful summer. But now it's the end of Shabbat, so Shavua Tov. I hope everyone has a good week ahead. And before I count the Omer with everybody, I wanted to tell a story. And the story is a real life, true story. It kind of jumps ahead in the counting to the holiday of Shavuot, the site of the holiday. And it's about going to Egypt. So I know Passover is all about leaving Egypt, but the year Amy and I lived in Israel for my first year of rabbinical school, we went to Egypt, Limitzrayim, 3 times. One of the times actually was during Passover. We went to Egypt after the Seders. We had Seders in Jerusalem. And we went to Egypt, actually to Cairo and Luxor and the site of the pyramids and the monuments. And it was quite astounding. We brought our matzah with us. But the other 2 times we went to Egypt was to the Sinai desert. And that's kind of where I'm going to jump into the story. So there's a couple of places people go in the Sinai. One of them is Dahab, and that's where we went both times. And Dahab, at the time, I haven't been there for a long time. It was definitely a vacation place, but very rustic. We lived in little huts while we were there on the beach, and there wasn't a lot of amenities, but it was just beautiful and nothing to block the ocean. It wasn't like no big buildings, no buildings at all. And while we were there at Dahab, we met some folks who were Egyptian and who were kind of tour guides, and they were taking people to what some say is the site of Mount Sinai, the biblical Mount Sinai. The place that the Hebrew slaves in our story, after they escaped from Egypt, and we have this 49-day trek, and they end up at Mount Sinai where they receive the Torah and Revelation. Well, there's a mountain that archaeologists and people who are in that sort of the tourist world are saying this must be the Mount Sinai that they speak of, that's written about in the Bible. So sure, we said we'd love to go there. This is a kind of a long trip, and what people do, they said, is they go leave late at night, post midnight, so you get there in time to hike up and see the sunrise from Mount Sinai. We said that sounds glorious, and so they said, okay, let's meet at I think it was 12:30, 1 in the morning. So we maybe got a little shut eye, and we met our guides, and we took a drive all the way, it was hours, to the site, to the Mount Sinai, and it was obviously very dark and late at night, early in the morning, and we started hiking, and we were, as far as I could see, there was nobody else making this trip, with us, in front of us, behind us, alongside of us. It was just Amy and I and 2 of my friends from rabbinical school and our 2 guides. But it was gorgeous. I mean, I'm somebody who's spent some time in the outdoors, and I've gone camping, and I've been up in northern Minnesota, almost all the summers of my life. But I've never seen stars. We were so far away. Even Dahab is far away from any kind of, at least at the time, much civilization. But here we were, like, really, in the proverbial middle of nowhere, and the stars were indescribably incredible, like breathtaking. So we hiked, we were stargazing. At some point, the guide said, we're getting a little. It's still nobody around. We're getting a little, it's going to be a little early when we get to the top. Why don't we take a little nap? And there was sort of like a little rest house. And so we did. I think they had asked us to bring sleeping bags. And so we did. We slept for a bit, and the guides woke us up and said, okay, now's the time. And we set up, and it was still dark, and we're hiking and we're climbing, and still really no sign of any people. And we could at this point see the peak, see the top of the mountain. Obviously, when it comes to the tourist story, this is quite a extraordinary thing to contemplate, the top of Mount Sinai, right? And the first glimmers of light were starting to come. The sunrise was imminent, and we were close to the top. And then all of a sudden, we heard this singing, gorgeous chanting, and sure enough, we weren't the only people climbing Mount Sinai. We just left earlier than everybody else. And while we were resting, the others had started their trek. And the first group, and there were, we looked down and there were, literally dozens and dozens into the hundreds of people who were climbing Mount Sinai to see the sunrise. And led by a group of monks who, also were retracing this biblical journey, and they were chanting, religious chants, and it was gorgeous. And so that kind of accompanied our climb, and we did get to the top of Mount Sinai, or what is referred to in Egypt as Mount Sinai, and joined by the monks and all the pilgrims and all the tourists, and together we watched an amazing sunrise, in the Sinai desert. So this time of year brings those kind of stories to my mind and my heart, and I wanted to share it with you as we continue this trek from the desert landscape up to the mountain, from the spring to the summer, from Passover to Shavuot, from the Festival of Freedom to the Festival of First Fruits, and the beginning of our kind of creating a people out of this band of runaway slaves, this Erev Rav, this mixed multitude, that because of Mount Sinai, the story tells us, we became a people with a purpose, to be as ethical and as moral and as caring and loving, to be servants, not to slave masters, but servants to each other. So this day that we're about to count is the 12th day. Tomorrow, I guess that's Sunday. It's Motzei Shabbat, so that'll be the 12th day. In the Kabbalistic framework, it is Chod within Gevura. Gevura, again, as it has been all week, is strength and power and discipline. And Chod, it has to do with being grateful and thankful, but also being humble. I think it's the idea with Chod within Gevura is in wherever you are, in power or strong, that the strength isn't a flaw, but strength without blending it or balancing it with that Chod, with that humility, with that gratitude. That's when you kind of are off the path. So what we're trying to do is stay in the path for all of this time of the Omer and beyond. And so it's a privilege again to say this blessing with all of you. Again, Shavua Tov. But here's the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ruach haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sifirat haomer. Blessed is the Holy One whose presence fills creation, from where we learn mitzvahs, sacred deeds that fill our lives with meaning and purpose and dignity, including this mitzvah of counting the days of the Omer, the 49 days, the 7 weeks, this now being the 12th day of our counting, onwards and upwards. We'll see you tomorrow night for the next message and the next count. Everyone, take care. Blessings.